The other day I was reminiscing, thinking about old games, about quarantine, and I suddenly had a memory. The sound of dodgeballs hitting someone's face, the sound of a funky soundtrack blasting in my ears, the sound of someone charging up a curveball that in no way you're gonna catch. And of course, I'm talking about Knockout City. Now, if you don't know what Knockout City is, or was, and you never got the chance to play it, you missed out on one of the greatest obscure games of all time. Knockout City was a multiplayer game that focused on dodgeball. It was essentially dodgeball, but make it as competitive as it possibly could be. Releasing in 2021, it was an extreme hit. Knockout City was almost everywhere, and then it wasn't. End of story. This video I'm going to be talking about why Knockout City was so fun and then why exactly it failed. Dodgeball in a video game was one of the freshest ideas that I had seen, and still to this day is a great idea. It was up there with like Fortnite and Rocket League. It was just so obscure that it worked. The art style, music, and gameplay felt amazing. The whole game was condensed into a specific street vibe and it was extremely polished. How the game worked was that there were primarily teams of 3. Players would need to go around the map to pick up different dodgeballs, some having very unique special effects, and use them to eliminate opponents. When facing an opponent, you have multiple options depending if you're defending or attacking. You could throw a curveball in either direction, catch a dodgeball, fake throw, lob, pass, dodge. There is so much you can do. And using these tactics created an endless possibility of mix-ups and interactions, which made each battle super interesting. A lot of the times, battles with opponents would be super tense because you're trying to predict what they're going to do next, and the dodgeball is just going back and forth and back and forth. It's insane. The maps themselves reminded me a little bit of Valorant, with secrets being everywhere and tiny little details. Knockout City's maps were definitely impressive. Each map had its own little unique quirk and ways to approach the different environments. There were travel tubes and cars and giant wrecking balls. The maps were extremely detailed and super fun to play on. Even the maps alone, you could tell that a lot of love went into this game. They knew how players were going to react to the maps, how certain parts were going to be utilized, what people would play around, and Knockout City just felt like the game absolutely knew what it wanted to be. Another thing I really enjoyed about Knockout City was its cosmetics. This game really did have something going for itself, and I'm sad that I didn't get to see it evolve into more. There were some amazing skins and cosmetics that were genuinely worth it, and lots of basic things too, like emotes, banners, and tags. There were also gloves, shoes, gliders. It was all over the place, and they were all unique. And besides the cosmetics just being cool in general, there was also so many opportunities to just get free cosmetics and free currency. The game wanted you to play, and the game wanted you to experience what they have. It was really easy to compare it to something like Fortnite, as in they would give you a lot of opportunities to just get stuff for free, just to enjoy the options that they have, all the cosmetics. Customization in Knockout City was highly incentivized, and I loved it. Often when playing Knockout City, it was exciting going into a match, knowing that there was a new strategy to be tested out, or maybe a fun coordination that you could do with a friend. Most matches would genuinely have me on the edge of my seat, and I had a lot of fun playing back then. Convincing everyone I knew to play Knockout City was a slice of cake. The beta was out, servers were popping, cosmetics were great. Knockout City had my attention. Until the beta ended and the full release version came out. Knockout City was different. When the full version of Knockout City came out, it was $20, which was an interesting choice considering that the beta was absolutely free. I had still bought it, and I had so much faith in Knockout City that I wanted to pay for a game that I already experienced for free, just to play more. But the big problem is that I couldn't get a lot of people to join with me, and it seems like that seemed to be the overall problem. Some people had just gotten too comfortable with the game being free. The economy was so bad, free games were at an all-time high, and no one even had the simple drive to spend money on a game, even if it was perfect. And because of the whole pandemic situation, it was really hard to just get anyone to do anything. Knockout City ended up having a noticeable drop in players, and it caused the decline of the game. From this point on, Knockout City truly is tragic, because the player base drop count was still not the biggest problem. I still remember when I played Knockout City, after the full release version came out, it was just so laggy, it was unplayable. I genuinely had convinced myself that it was just my internet and it was a huge problem, but after going on threads and forums and YouTube videos, everyone seemed to have this problem. Especially in a game like Dodgeball, your reflexes have to be so incredibly fast that if you miss anything, you're out, you're done for the round. And it's not really fun when every single time you try to catch a ball or throw one, it just lags out and tells you that you were never even there in the first place. You were never playing Knockout City. you were never playing Knockout City. I mean, the lag was unbearable. It genuinely drove me away because the competitive system was so fun, but you couldn't enjoy it because you just couldn't play. It was too hard. Players who had a stable connection or just were lucky enough to get an advantage over you always won. It felt like you could never win. But lag can only really be so much of the problem. Lag is something that can be fixed. But Knockout City had another problem, which was the players. Now, admittedly, when I played Knockout City, I saw it as an opportunity to be competitive. I love being competitive in multiplayer games. Knockout City seemed like a game where you could express that. However, once you play the game for long enough, and I had almost 100 hours on this game, it seemed like there is a huge skill gap, but the skill ceiling was very low. Now, don't get me wrong, there was always going to be mix-ups in this game. Like I said earlier, you could lob a ball, you could do a curveball, dodge, catch, but most players, once you got to a high enough level, it seemed like the game would just be passing back and forth over and over until someone slept up. Slipped up? Is there a past tense to slipped up? Did I just make that word up? We're gonna stick with slept up. The only way I can explain this to somebody is if I talked about Fortnite and Fortnite's building. Now, the thing with Fortnite and building is that you can place whatever you want. You can ramp up someone, you can build a fortress, you can hide inside a base, and it creates these endless possibilities for people to do whatever they'd like. In early Fortnite, people would just kind of build up a little wall and then you would have to fight it and shoot it down. But then go all the way to the future to now, people are doing all these crazy box fight things. I don't even know what's going on, but that just shows that the skill ceiling is extremely high. Once you understand how the game works and what the most optimal way to build in Fortnite is, you understand the game more and you have a competitive advantage. Look, I am in no way a competitive Fortnite player, but I just know that there's some random stair stuff and it's honestly impressive. People learn this stuff every day and it seems like the game is always changing competitively. But then go back to Knockout City, and once you figure out what the most optimal way to throw a ball at someone is, everyone's going to do it. And that's exactly what happened. About 2 months after the game opened, everyone would just pass the ball back and forth until someone lost. No one wanted to do curveballs, no one wanted to do lob balls because it's too easy to react to. It was simply too slow. And yes, there were different items in the game, like the cage ball and the football, but no one really used those because they weren't optimal, especially in a competitive setting where they didn't really show up as often. The game slowly felt less and less rewarding to play. It felt like you ran out of options competitively. It was too laggy. Every time you hopped into a game, you know people would do the same exact thing every single time. There was no real competition. A few months after the official release, the player decline started to show. I have a memory of playing Knockout City with my brother, and we're playing trios trying to find a third person, and we're in queue for almost 10 to 15 minutes. 10 to 15 minutes to play one game of Knockout City. And the worst part is that when you got into that game, it would still be laggy, you would still fight against the same exact tactics and strategies and the same maps. Although the cosmetics kept coming and there was new music and sometimes new game modes, it really did feel like nothing was changing fundamentally about the game, which sometimes isn't a bad thing, but in the case of Knockout City, change was definitely needed. Comparing this to a game like Rocket League, where the fundamentals of the game have never changed, but they keep adding things like new game modes that are actually interesting, new maps, new cosmetics, new tournament modes. They keep the players coming back for more without actually changing the original game. But that's also because fundamentally, Rocket League is almost like a sandbox competitively. It's a 3D map where you can play around with a soccer ball as a car. The possibilities are almost endless. I think the biggest problem of Knockout City for me was the lag and the competitive issues. Everything else was okay. I actually loved the maps. I do wish there were more ways to experience the game, like new game modes, but competitively, this game really did fall off. There's only so many times where you can fight against a player and they fake you out, or they throw a curveball and then you catch it and then you throw it back, and then it just happens every single time. There's no diagonal ball, there's no secret tech, nothing like that. Once you understand how the game works and you memorize what each animation looks like basically, there's nothing else really to do. You either win a fight or you lose, and then you move on to the next game. If I could give Knockout City a second chance, I absolutely 100% would. I think Knockout City had something great going for itself. The characters were amazing, the maps were amazing, the gameplay itself was amazing, the items they had were really cool, and they really had a fundamentally great game. It's just that they didn't change anything about it, and they didn't want to fix the current problem. And it really is hard. Knockout City is a game that appeals both to a casual audience and a competitive audience, so it's hard to treat both. But the problem is that it seemed like the developers were sort of stubborn when it comes to balancing their game. There are tons of games like Fortnite and Rocket League that cater to both audiences, having both a competitive scene and casual scene. If you have any experiences of Knockout City, please let me know. I really miss this game and it feels like no one really played it, or at least no one I know. Well, on to the next game.